Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki. Welcome back to Principles of Management, hybrid or fully online class, or as a supplement to your face-to-face class. This is going to be a real quick overview of Chapter 14 on leadership. This is an extension again from Introduction to Business. And remember, when you're looking at this chapter and reading all the materials, you're looking at it from a managerial perspective, not a first-line supervisor, but a middle manager's perspective, that he or she is looking at developing parts of the organization or parts of a department going forward. Okay? So what do we have on leadership? Again, what is leadership? There's a question that you're going to look from the author did a real good job. Are leaders born? Do they have certain traits? All of these are parts of leadership. But basically, if you look at management, if you come to a certain point, if you got the will and the determination, we could teach you to be an effective leader. I understand some leaders are going to have the charisma, maybe a little bit better, but most managers can be taught to be into the leadership position, utilizing the skill sets and everything else you'll learn in here. So for real quickly, and remember, always go into concept maps. I'll have these out here. And so if I'm looking at leadership, I'm looking at the process, exerts influence over other people, inspires, motivates, helps achieve group organizational goals, and directs their activity. That basically is the leadership. So remember, kind of write this down. If you're looking for the next promotion as a management, why should we hire you? Because you inspire, you motivate, and to achieve the organizational goals. Okay, so we have that person. Now when I look at leadership, if I look at formal leader, and this is what the book's going to talk about, as an extension: legitimate power, reward power, coercive power, expert power, and reverence power. These first two, legitimate, reward, and coercive, will come underneath the legitimacy of me being assigned as a manager or a leader. I'm a middle manager. My title alone gives me all these, powers. The organization allows me to know how much of the power I could utilize before I have to ask for someone else to help me. So even as middle managers, we have certain boundaries. Just like employees are empowered, they could do certain things up to a certain level. Middle managers have certain boundaries. They have a lot more latitude, a lot more flexibility than a first-line supervisor, but they still have boundaries. So if I have these two, legitimate power means I've got the title. You have to, you're like a police officer. Whether you like the police officer or not, you stop. You're looking at the police officer. It could be a small police officer, but if he or she raises their hand, you stop because of the authority and legitimate power that police officer carries. Plus, you also know there's about like 50,000 other police officers. If you do something wrong, they'll all come after you. But irrelevant, okay? So now the other one you have is reward power. As a manager, if I reward people, and understand some people, when we talked about motivation from last chapter, when you certain triggers. So if I give you something that you could think I could get something from me, just human nature, I have the ability to reward, it makes me a little more of an effective type of a leader versus one that has the authority but can't reward. And then when I look at reward, time off or other kind of attributes that are motivated and beneficial to the employee and the organization. Now the next one is coercive power. Coercive power is, and remember, some people, when we learned about motivation last week, is on between theory Y and theory X. Some individuals, the only thing that motivates them, or the only thing that's going to keep them functioning and keep them playing fairly within the organization, is basically the fear of being punished. And that's, even when we looked at the ethics and integrity and everything else, that compliance aspect. So if I have all these, that makes me a leader. I have the ability, I have all the tools I need to go forward. Now, if I have expert power, if you see a lot of leaders, if they came out from the field, if they worked their way up through the organization, if they were in that department at one time, or they manage or work in that department, they have like an expert. So when I'm looking at a team leader for those type of individuals, I'm going, hey, this individual's got expertise other than this, so I'll listen to him. All right. Now the other one is reverend. Well, let's look like a reverend. Power comes from subordinate respect, admiration, and loyalty. There's some individuals that you just attracted to as a magnet. They have the charisma. They don't have to be a formal manager. There could be an informal leader, but they have the reverend power. And you also have some of those individuals. If you look at Martin, Mr. King, and his movement and everything else. He basically had the reverent power. He didn't have any reward. He didn't have any kind of punishment. He didn't have any legitimate power. He didn't have any expert. He was basically strictly irreverent in the cause and everything else going forward. Okay, so when we look at that, so you have the reverent power. So as a manager, if I possess all of these, that makes me a better manager. Now these here are given to me. These here I could learn how to use. This here I could learn how to use. This expert power, either you have it or not. If you don't have the expertise, may be hard. And the reverent power, and there's some people are just born to just have that magnetism or that charisma that people are attracted to. Okay. Now the next one we talked about. Remember, if you look the way I set up this, I'm going to keep it under 5 minutes. If the way this I'm doing the concept maps this way, I'm just going to use the definition. And if I look at the definition, I mean, there are models and everything else that you're going to do from the reading that will make all this sense. But now if I have to understand it from as a managerial perspective, forget all the different models. What do I pull out of it that I could utilize when I'm managing my team to manage them effectively, to gain that respect and gain that loyalty and gain that motivation that I was hired as a manager, middle manager, to bring these pieces together, either within my department. Okay, so if I look at position, is the amount of legitimate power that at certain positions I may have more power than other individuals. If I am just a security guard, even though I have the power to do something else, I don't have as much, legitimate power as a police officer that could arrest me and go do something else. I could arrest him as a security officer, but I have to ask for the police officer to come and actually file the report and everything else and take that individual into custody. Okay, so we have that. Okay, now developmental consideration. When I look at an individual, and let me bring this up a little bit. If I look at a behavior leader engages, remember the whole thing of a manager, whether I'm a first line supervisor, middle manager, is basically to be supportive, encourage followers, and help individuals grow, develop individuals as they grow. Because as they grow, some individuals are going to surpass you as a manager. There's individuals that work for me, and all of a sudden I end up working for him because of timing, because they had the skill sets, or whatever the things that came across. Certain doors were open for them at that time. I was in a different position, so and things changed. So remember, but they remembered that I helped them build them up. You're always going to have that. That's part of the network. Not that they owe me anything else, but as a good leader, do you want to gain that respect, is that you help develop the people for you. You're only as good as the individuals that work for you. Okay, leader substitute. I mean, sometimes I'm not here. You're somebody that has, content or acts in my place as a substitute. You really don't have any kind of ability, but they give you that position to see how you could work with managing other people, just using your reverent and expert power, because you don't really have you kind of have like a mini legitimate power, because they could take it away from you. But and your coercive and reward power, the only thing you could do is tell me, and hopefully I will act in your behalf. If the person's doing something wrong, he's not paying attention, or doing something that you could tell me as the legitimate leader, even though I've gave you some power, but you still don't have the formal power. Remember, your position doesn't allow you to fire or to discipline or anything else on that. Okay? So far, so good. Now, empowerment, we already talked about. That's basically is that the individual has certain abilities that we hire to make certain decisions within certain parameters, tasks, and takes decisions, responsibilities. Now, I'll leave that one, gender, and that later on. Let's go on emotional intelligence. Okay, charismatic leader, make sure they're self-confident, enthusiastic, able to communicate clearly. That means you could have both good written communication and good verbal. That's why when you go into the forums and everything else in any of my classes, you always can do some kind of presentation. Vision of how things work. Now, the path and goal theory, basically leaders can motivate subordinates by identifying certain outcomes. As a manager, I understand I'm in charge of the team, but there's certain things I need to get through that are going to be the core of my managerial goals, for lack of a better word. And then I'll reward the high performers that attain the goals and desire outcomes. I'll help clarify them, and I'll open up and help lead them, each individual, their paths to attain the goals. Okay, so that's what the path goal theory is going. Transformational leader, remember, they're pretty close to the transactional leader, is by rewarding high performance. The only difference between transformational leader, not only does he or she have the same kind of attributes of this, but they basically try to motivate motivate individuals and help to develop them to find a purpose for why it makes sense for them as an individual, not only for the organization and team goals. And the servant leader, you always should be a servant leader. Look, if you see your team needs help, jump in, get your hands. I'm a boss, I don't get my hands dirty. Get your hands dirty. I mean, yeah, unless you're gonna mess something else up. But if you know how to do the task, or you could do something else there, don't just stand there. I'm the boss, and that's not my thing. This is how you gain respect. This is how you gain loyalty. This is how you gain people saying, "Hey, he's just like one of us. He is the leader. He has the ability. He is a servant. He also knows how to be humble." Okay. And then consideration. When I look at consideration, you're always looking at behavior, respect, and cares about subordination. Now these next ones here, the fiddler's contingency matter. They look at the tasks of the individual that he has to do. So you got to make sure as a manager or as a management that I have different departments that all the tasks are very clear and everyone knows what they need to do to accomplish it. They're properly trained and they have the proper tools for that. And now task-oriented leaders who primary concerns the subordinates perform to a high level. Those are different types of individuals. We talked about different kind of diversity. I bring some that are very hard-nosed. I bring some that are participated. If you look at the managerial, we have all kinds. Theory X, Theory Y, Theory Z, Theory whatever is in there, because that's basically what brings the whole managerial thing. Because after a while, you have people from different perspectives. Those perspectives carry on to other individuals, okay? So we have that, and then relationship is just another one. If you have a relationship, there's leaders that basically focus on the relationship. And if I look at the Fiddler's model, it tells you where do you fit in, what kind of a team it is, what kind of expertise, what is the task involved, and what kind of a leadership would make sense. So you're kind of looking like a situational type of a model going over, or contingency, for lack of better words, like they had. Okay, so now let's go back into gender and women. Now this is where we're going to have our discussion in class. So remember, more women in management. There's more women in management. Like it or not, there's more opportunities. Women are doing more managerial jobs. They're getting out of what could be considered the traditional women's work. And you see a lot of men flipping back, taking because they're laid off because of construction, and they're going back to what would be which would be considered traditionally women's job. You could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, or a grade school or high school or anything else. Men are filling in those positions and vice versa. So now you have more women. But what they find out from the author, that you're going to find out there's still few women at the top level. And that's later on more in discussion. Stereotype of women. Remember, like it or not, we always think of a woman, depending on the relationship you had with your mom and your mother, that she was always nurturing. Most women, are nurturing. They're very team oriented. They always bring people in together. So they have kind of like a stereotypical aura around what women do. So when I bring in women, people think they're more supportive, they're more concerned with interpersonal relations, and they are. And men are typically stereotyped as being very direct and very focused on accomplishment. What research has found, what you found out in the book, and I'll just give you a few a real quick overview on this, is leadership position behave in similar way. They haven't found any different. Sure, you're going to find one extreme that's very emotional, one extreme that's very team building for women or man, but overall, most women will fall into the place and take the role that's designed by the role through the mentoring. And men do not engage in more initiating structure than women. So if I look at this, say they're basically even. Remember, when you're doing a sample survey, you're going to have your extremes on either side, and you're looking at the average. The overall, they see no difference. Okay, and that's what the research suggested. And remember, and the last one here is emotional intelligence, is leadership. If you don't have emotional intelligence, that means how do I control my emotion? I can't flip out at everyone who doesn't do what I want. I can't yell at people because they made a mistake. I have to encourage. I have to learn. I still fire them. I can still get them going. I'm not trying to do just lay over and let them walk over me, but I do it with respect, and I look at it and I try to first develop it. The last thing as a manager for me is to fire them or discipline. Those are part of my progression. I try to talk to them. I try to train them. I try to bring a mentor to them. I try to bring other team members in there. That's what you have to do as a leadership. My job as a leader, or even a manager, as a management position, is to make sure my leaders, my direct reports, have the same value systems, the same goals oriented, and the same respect towards the individuals as I would have towards the employees. Okay? So again, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and this week we're covering Chapter 14 in Leadership, and this is Business 223 Principles of Management, offered by the College of Lake County, and I'll see you for the next one. So look at the mind maps, and I've done this mind map a little bit differently. You still have the student's PowerPoint, you still have the publisher's PowerPoint, and so you have all this data, you still have to connect and everything else in the book. Trust me, you will learn more. I've have different ways for individuals to learn depending on your learning style. Okay? Have a nice day.